Good day. I'm Karen Wilson, and this is Table Talk. My guest today is Department of Tennessee American Legion Commander Lanny Culver. Commander Culver is on a commander's tour. You're going around the state, so we're so glad that you were able to start here with us today and start your day out. Tell us, I guess, a little bit about the role of the department commander. What do you do?
Well, we do a lot of public relations work. I'm also responsible for supervising all of our leadership across the department. The state of Tennessee, we call them departments because there are more than 50 American Legion departments. We also have the Department of France, Puerto Rico, Mexico, the Philippines, and Washington, D.C. So we call it department instead of state. But the role of the department commander is to supervise all of the leadership in the state, which is broken down into 3 divisions, East, Middle, and West, and 10 districts within those divisions. We also have a lot of committee chairs that we appoint to the different committees that we have, and we supervise all of those. Make some policy decisions. We help with boosting membership across the department, trying to keep our membership, because that's the lifeblood of any organization, is the membership. And try to have as much fun as we can while we're doing it.
Well, I didn't realize it is such a large, you talked about committees and leadership. It's a large organization, so it takes a lot, I guess, to keep it moving.
Yes, it does. In the Department of Tennessee, when you count all of our headquarters, new members, stuff like that, we have about 24,000. And we represent over 450,000 veterans across the state. We lobby for the veterans' interests. One of the things that the American Legion just helped to push through was something called the PACT Act. And the reason we did that was because the Vietnam veterans suffered from Agent Orange, and they had to fight and scratch and claw and scream and complain and go for years to get the benefits that they deserved for what happened to them in their time of service. Well, what we found is the veterans since 9/11 that went to Bosnia and Afghanistan, Iraq, and all those places, the government was burning refuge in what we call burn pits. So they suffered from toxic exposure due to that, and we recently got that pushed through. The Senate had voted to approve it, and it got kicked back to the House, and then it got changed a little bit and got sent back to the Senate, and then the Senate voted against it. Immediately, 9,000 American Legion members across the country sent emails to these senators of theirs and crashed their servers.
Well, good for them.
So it got passed the next day. We have right at 2 million members nationwide in the Legion, and then we also have several 100,000 auxiliary and Sons of the American Legion members. Not to mention all of our families and all that, So we got quite a voice, and that's why we try to keep our membership up, is so that we continue to have that voice.
Yeah, because you're, like you said, you're lobbying, you're helping with getting laws passed to protect veterans and their families and things like that. I'm sure it's amazing thinking about when a series of veterans or people serving go through medical issues and things like that, just building the case that there's something going on here that we need to help with.
Yeah, the Agent Orange thing. Now, years ago, they approved some what we call presumptives for people that had boots on the ground in Vietnam. And if you were in what they call the brown water Navy, that was on the Mekong Delta and all up the river and all in the inland areas of Vietnam, you were pretty well able to get it because they knew they had sprayed those chemicals, and our people went through that.
Right.
But the people in what we call the blue water Navy, which was the big ships off the coast, they just said, no, you don't get it. The only thing is those planes were taking off from those ships and found out also that the water that they were drinking on those ships and showering in was contaminated with the chemicals.
Oh, okay.
So we also, a few years ago, were able to push through and get the Blue Water Navy approved. So, we're a nonpartisan organization, but we do get in political arguments with people, and we do push through anything that has to do with bettering the veterans and their families. That's what we're all about.
Well, tell us, I guess, how the American Legion began and how it's kind of evolved over the years. We talked about how large it is. I'm sure the lobbying is just one small part of what you do.
Okay, so Theodore Roosevelt Jr. was in the Army hospital with a guy called Sergeant Henderson. They were recovering from their wounds that they suffered during battle. And they got talking about the way the veterans from the Civil War had been treated and the Spanish-American War, how they'd been treated, and they decided that they wanted to try to do something about it. So Theodore Roosevelt Jr. went to his commanding general and said, we need to have a group venture and start a veteran service organization. Well, the general said, we can't call a meeting of all the different brigades and everything else just to form a veteran service organization. But we can call something to boost the morale of the troops. So they called that March 15th through 18th, 1919 in Paris. It's what we call the Paris Caucuses. And 1,000 or so people came, including Alvin York. He was one of the ones that was there. And they started the basic groundwork for something called the American Legion. And they decided also that when they got back in the States, they needed to have a meeting. So they set May of 1919 to have a caucus in St. Louis. Now, different cities vied for the honor and privilege of having that, but St. Louis got that. So they had the St. Louis caucuses that adopted some of the founding principles of the American Legion. Then they decided they were going to have a convention later in the year, and Minneapolis is where that was going to go. Now, we're sitting here on TV today, and it's a pretty common thing, TV and hundreds of channels and radios all over the place. But in 1919, there was no TV, there was no radio, there were very few cars, there weren't any telephones to speak of. Most of the roads, this road out in front of us here, 5 lanes like it is, if it was there, it would have been dirt. So there was really no way to spread the word other than word of mouth. But from March of 1919 till they had their convention in November of 1919, they got 685,000 members.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. So that's kind of how it got started. And they decided to do things to help the veterans. A Civil War veteran could have lost a leg and he'd get a pension of $100. And that just wasn't right. So they started working on all of those issues, and a big issue was the care for the veterans. There was no VA administration, Veterans Administration. It wasn't there. There were 30 different government bureaucracies that you had to go to and try to wade through the red tape and try to figure out which one to do. And you go through the process with this one is the wrong one. So we were instrumental in forming the VA system that we have today,
right.
way back in 1919 and 1920. We got up to, at one time, about 14,000 posts or local groups. Now we have around 12,000 in the country and out of the country. The American Legion's like the Texas Rangers. It knows no boundaries. All right? We have the Department of France has posts in England, and all over Europe, but we call it Department of France.
Right.
And actually, the Department of France even has what we call the China Post. We had a post in China back before Mao Zedong took over.
Are those like veterans that live abroad that participate in those out of the country?
Now, they may have been stationed in, and I talked to a guy that was a past national vice commander from the Department of France, but he doesn't live in France now, but he's kept his membership in France. So it would have been U.S. servicemen or veterans that were overseas and joined the American Legion in their local post. You see, we're made up of local posts, and there's about 166 in the Department of Tennessee. We've got 2 local posts right here in McMinnville. We got 173 and 208. The 208 people are pretty instrumental in a local thing, the Black History Museum here in McMinnville. They helped get that started, and they're the ones that really kind of run the thing. So we do local things. There's a post up in Spencer. There's one over in Manchester. There's another in Tullahoma. We got one in Woodbury. So they're just scattered all around the state. The one I come from is in Scotts Hill. And Scotts Hill is a little bitty town, does not have a traffic light. We have one four-way stop sign and one regular stop sign. And we had all-time high membership 2 years ago of 154.
Wow.
Without
that's
a traffic
big
light.
Post.
It's a big post. Now it's kind of medium-sized as far as they go, but for a town with no traffic lights,
Yeah.
but we're very involved in the community, and that's how posts succeed, by being involved in the community. I always tell all of the leadership and all of the members, there's 3 things you have to do to have a successful post or a local group, and that is to meet regularly, to have some type of program or speaker at your meeting, and to make a difference in the community.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about. Now, the little pin I gave you, it's got my name on it, and it's got Tennessee Department Commander, but it's also got my mantra on it. And what I tell people we are local veterans still serving.
Great.
And we are.
Yeah. Just like with the veterans or the Black History Museum, still doing things within that community to make a difference and,
That's right.
and active.
Yeah.
Talk about, I guess, your programs for children and families and how incorporating children and families kind of helps fulfill your mission.
Well, that's what we're about, with the veterans and the children. The American Legion is founded on 4 basic principles, and we call those the 4 pillars of the American Legion. We advocate for a strong national defense. We are all for Americanism. Part of our preamble to our Constitution talks about instilling a 100% Americanism. We go into the schools and teach kids. The next thing that we do is support veterans and their families in rehabilitation. We also have a pillar called Children and Youth. So we develop programs in all of those different pillars. Now, Americanism, one of the things that I really like to do is to go into the schools and talk to the kids. We'll go in with an honor guard and do 13 folds of the American flag. And, explain what each fold means as we're doing it. And in little bitty Scotts Hill over there, the elementary school, we have actually got a honor guard that does the 13 folds themselves at the intermission of basketball games. They march out there just as proud as they can be a part of that. And they have to earn the right to be on the honor guard, to go out and post the flag and take the flag down. We teach them flag etiquette. And we've taught them how to do the 13 folds. So we'll go around to different civic organizations and churches and groups and put on that demonstration and explain that to people. But we're real big on Americanism. Children and youth programs. The very first program that the American Legion got behind way back in 1920 was the Boy Scouts. And we still support scouting throughout the country. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Heritage, whatever. Any kind of youth programs like that. American Legion Baseball used to be very big. There are over 100 former American Legion baseball players in the Baseball Hall of Fame in Canton. So Boy State. President Clinton was a Boy State governor of his state, so he attended. Tom Brokaw, a lot of famous people. Lamar Alexander was governor of the Tennessee Boys State when he was a junior in high school, and they said, you're governor of Boys State. One day you might be governor of the state of Tennessee. And he was.
Yeah, right.
So we teach people in Boys State, and we do Girls State. Now that's really an auxiliary program, but we teach them about the government and how the government basically works, and we teach them about elections. And in Tennessee, they actually get to sit in an actual live session of the Tennessee Supreme Court actually trying cases. So they get a lot of experience and life-changing experience. We have the National Emergency Fund, we have Child Welfare Fund, Operation Comfort Warriors.
I noticed too, the American Legion Riders. What is that exactly?
Okay. Now, in order to be an American Legion Rider, you have to be a member of either the American Legion, the Auxiliary, or the Sons of the American Legion. You have to be a member of that. And if you're a member of that and your local chapter decides to start a Legion Riders chapter, you can join that. Now, the Legion Riders were established not so many years ago to support the American Legion Legacy Scholarship Foundation. And what that does, originally it was set up for anyone that died on active duty since 9/11, we would offer college scholarships to their children. And we did such a great job of raising money that we've now expanded the eligibility to include anybody that has a VA rating of over 50% disability or more since 9/11. Each year we raise over $1 million for that Legacy Foundation. This year in Tennessee, we had our first ever Legion Legacy Scholarship Run.
Mm-hmm.
We started out in Cookeville and went up through Clarksville and over to Dover and back down and around to, I believe, Manchester and different places, Columbia, and ended up back in Cookeville. 730 miles in 3 days. And we raised over $20,000. When it was all said and done, the last donations came in just a few days ago. We had $20,002 from the Department of Tennessee.
That's amazing.
That's a lot of money for a first time. It really was.
And this is money that goes towards, I guess, college and technical training and things like that for students.
It's for scholarships for students, the children of those disabled or deceased veterans. Yeah.
Wonderful.
You know, and we've got a lot of money in there. But we have to continue to add funds, because if you take just the 13 men that were killed in the withdrawal from Afghanistan, if you just consider just them and their children, and some of them maybe had, children that hadn't been born yet. So we have to make sure that there's enough money in the fund to be able to offer those children scholarships also in the future. So we're continuing to raise money, even though we do have a lot of money in the foundation. That's what we do.
So even though, like, we're not actively in a wartime situation right now, you're still looking out for veterans who have given their lives or something of that nature, serving abroad or even...
Yeah, I mean, any veteran. You don't have to be a member of the American Legion. Any veteran that served honorably for 1 day, they're eligible for membership in the American Legion. But we're specifically interested in helping all the veterans that we can. Some posts have food banks, just different things.
I guess the post is sort of attuned to what is needed in their community.
That's right. That's why we established local posts, so that we would be able to reach out and actually help people in the communities. A lot of people don't really look at it this way, but the American Legion has changed this country, because not only did we help start the VA system, but the GI Bill.
Oh, yeah.
The very first GI Bill was written by past National Commander Harry Cormery. It was written on the stationery, handwritten notes on the stationery of the Washington Hotel across the street from where he was supposed to testify before Congress the next day. That came on to be the original GI Bill, which educated an entire generation of people. There were over 15 million Americans that served overseas and at home during World War II, and all of those people were eligible for that, all the way up through my brother was on the original GI Bill, and he entered the service in 1975. So it educated a generation. It changed home ownership. In those early days, most people did not own their homes. They rented from, landlords and all this kind of thing. But the GI Bill enabled those Americans to buy a home of their own. And it changed that. in this country. It just wasn't the case before that. And all of the GI bills that have come since then, we've marshaled them and pushed them through and lobbied and fought and scratched and clawed to get them. And now we have a GI bill where if you choose as a veteran not to go, you can give your benefit to one of your children to go. And that's quite an accomplishment.
That is, and you don't really think about a bill like that started so many years ago having to evolve over time. So you are constantly helping to keep the bill updated and relevant according to the needs of the veterans.
Right. As the world turns and changes, so do the GI Bill proposals that go before Congress. But the American Legion changed this country. People don't realize that.
Well, I know you're on this tour right now going around to all the different American Legions in the state, the different posts. What do you learn about each Legion, or what the purpose of your tour? Is it to see what each community is benefiting from the work that you all do, or elaborate on that?
Basically, what I'm doing is I'm going around to the different districts. Now, we try to get all the posts in a district to come to a meeting, and there'll be anywhere from 15 to 20 different posts in a district. And we give them what they need to do to protect themselves legally, and what they need to do to stay in the good graces of the IRS. The adjutant and all the others do all that stuff. But what I'm doing is I'm giving them some of the programs that I envision trying to put through for the department. And we have a preamble to our Constitution, and the very first words in that preamble are "for God and country." The founders of the American Legion thought that that was so important that that's how they started our Constitution, for God and country. So one of the initiatives that I've got going is, in addition to the department chaplain that I appoint, I've directed each district commander to appoint a district chaplain, and we're going to try to get some more chaplain training going on. Hansel Moore and Skip Ritter and some of the others here in the 4th District did that last year. And in my travels around the department last year leading up to this position, I found out about it, and I thought, that's a good idea, and if I make commander, I'm going to do that. So I have directed each one of the districts to give us a district chaplain. I've told the department adjutant, when you schedule your midwinter training, go ahead and schedule a class for chaplains, because we're going to do that. And there's a lot of people that don't believe, and that's fine. My son really doesn't believe, and that's okay. He does him and I do me. But chaplains are very important also because of trying to help people that are in need. I was at an orientation session for our Middle Tennessee district and division commanders, and that morning my mother passed away. And we had a chaplain there with us. And we went in the back and we prayed about it, and he made me feel better. And the guys going through that training with those guys that day helped me to get through. So they helped me, and that's what we try to do. And another thing that chaplains do is try to talk people down from suicide.
So counseling and
counseling. We have an initiative in the American Legion now called Be the One, and it's Be the One to help save a veteran from suicide. And we're promoting that nationwide, and I want to also make everyone aware of a number. Everybody knows to call 911 for an emergency. Do you know what number to call if you have someone thinking about suicide?
I don't, but I know there is a hotline number for
There's
that.
a hotline, but now instead of having to remember 1-800-273-8255, all you have to remember is 988. 988. If someone's thinking about suicide and you need to talk to somebody, call 988 and get some help. Okay.
And that's so needed for veterans. They go through so many things that sometimes we don't understand or relate to. So the role of the chaplain and the line, the importance of that is just unreal.
Now, I'm pushing the chaplain aspect of things, and another one of the initiatives that I'm trying to do is women veterans. Now, we've always had a women veterans chair in the department, or have done for several years, and basically I'm directing each one of the district commanders to also appoint a women veterans chair for their district. And they're all going to work with the department chair that I have, and we're trying to form a women's veterans coalition of the Department of Tennessee. And women have different issues from men. They have different health problems from what the men have. They suffered a lot of discrimination when they were in the service. There might not have been black and white discrimination in the service, but there was definitely male-female discrimination. And so often you'll go to a veterans event and there'll be a couple sitting there, and people will go over to the guy and say, "What branch were you in?" He said, "I wasn't in." They just assumed that the woman sitting there was not a veteran. And that's just wrong.
Yeah.
So,
And nowadays, I guess the ladies make up a large portion of who are serving.
yeah, and their roles have changed. Their roles have changed since I was in the service back in late 70s and early 80s. They've changed. Definitely have.
I've often thought how hard it would be to try to raise a family as a woman and be serving in the military, and you're so torn, and there's probably a lot that comes with that a lot of guilt and feelings and things like that. So they need their own.
Well, they get
help.
deployed too. Before, the wife stayed on base housing and the husband got deployed and he'd come back or not. Now that wife goes, that mother goes, that single mother goes on deployment, and she has no choice. Either that or wait your time out and get out of the service and ruin your career.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of different issues. And another one of the initiatives that I'm trying to get going here in Spencer, little bitty community up on top of the mountain, Van Buren County, with 6,000 people in the whole county. But they had the very first ever in the country telehealth portal. They went ahead and got 3 more in the 4th district. So I saw one of them when I was up in Livingston.
As part of Ben Lomond, we were so proud to be a part of that, to help with the portal there and in White County as well. And who would have thought when that started with the COVID pandemic coming, how important that would be?
It's critical. It's really hard for people in the extreme rural areas like that to get to anything. And even down in Scotts Hill, you don't think of it being too rural, but you still got to drive 60 miles, and then you might have to go to Memphis or Nashville, so that's a couple hundred miles,
Right.
and it's just hard, So the telehealth portals, we're hoping that we can get a bunch of those scattered around the state. I was talking to, they got one down in Sparta, and I was talking to the little commander down there in Sparta, Ron LaPierre, and he was telling me that he had made arrangements for a local parent to speak to their son that was on ship in the South Pacific. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can do. And okay, what's that got to do with healthcare? Well, it's got to do with the mental health of that troop.
It does.
Okay.
The portal just serves as anything that veteran or that family needs
That's
to
right.
connect.
That's right. So those are some of the initiatives that I'm trying to talk about and trying to promote across the Department of Tennessee, as well as some things that have to do with membership and recruiting. I've been telling people that Masons, they've been around for hundreds of years, but they can't recruit. You have to find out about them and ask them if you can join. If the American Legion was that way, I think we'd be in trouble. We wouldn't have lasted over 100 years. But, so I try to explain to them the importance of recruiting and the importance of welcoming the veterans into their post when they do get them in there. It's very important. Back when the Vietnam veterans were coming home, they were going into the American Legion posts, and it was full of World War I and World War II veterans, and they said, "Oh, you guys weren't in a real war." There's 58,000 plus people that didn't return home that would kindly disagree with that, not to mention all their families. So they weren't welcomed in, and they weren't welcomed home. And that's another thing we do. We promote welcoming home those Vietnam veterans. And our Legionnaire of the Year this past year, large reason he got it is because he pinned 2,000 Vietnam veterans. He gave them a pin, and presented it to them and pinned it on them and that. And recognized those people that had been so disgraced when they came home. And we really try to make sure that the veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan and Kuwait and Bosnia and all those places are welcomed home and made to feel good instead of disgraced. I mean, those people that went to Vietnam, most of them were drafted and made to go. And they chose to serve their country rather than run to Canada or wherever it could be, and it was a shame. So we promote, being welcoming and being appreciative of the veterans these
when
days.
someone signs up for the military, they're not given a choice on whether they support a war or an effort or anything. They're told that's their job and they go do it, and they do so very proudly. And you cannot blame them for what they've had to go endure.
Oh, look, man, even when I joined, I went into the Air Force. I tell everybody, they say, "What branch were you in, the Marines?" No, I was in the Air Force. I said, country club needed members too, But anyway, we still served, and I joined, and the recruiter said, "Oh, yeah, Southeast U.S., no problem at all." My first assignment was to Guam. I ended up going to England instead. And you'd think England, well, that's the next best thing to being in the United States. But when I got over there, I was sitting up in the barracks watching the news, and the Prime Minister came on, James Callahan, and he said, "Yes, I am a socialist." And I'm sitting there thinking, I volunteered to serve my country, and I'm in a communist country. Of course, they kicked him out, and Margaret Thatcher came on, and sales tax went from 5% to 15% with 2 hours' notice. So, things like that were to happen here, there'd just be revolution.
Yeah, you're right.
So, you don't have a choice. You just go where you go.
Let's talk about recruitment real quick as we wrap things up, because there's opportunities for people to be a part of the American Legion that didn't directly serve through the auxiliary and the Sons of the American Legion. Tell us about that.
Okay. Yes, we call it the Legion family. We have the American Legion, we have the American Legion Auxiliary, which used to be the Ladies Auxiliary, but it's not now. Male spouses of female veterans can join the auxiliary. We have over 1,000 of those nationwide. We have our first ever district president in the 6th District in the Department of Tennessee that is a male. Now, he's a member of the Legion, he's a member of the Sons, he's a member of the Riders, and he's a member of the auxiliary. Now, the Sons of the American Legion is where I actually got my beginnings. My father was in the American Legion when I was a kid. He was a post commander and district commander, and he had also been a national officer. His best friend was the national commander one year. And when I got out of the service, because of when I was in, I wasn't eligible to join. He said, "There's no honorary or nothing. I can't do anything for you." Now, he gave my brother, who was a Vietnam-era veteran, a membership. But I couldn't have one. I wasn't eligible. So I went 30 years telling people, "No, I can't join the Legion. I'm not eligible. I'm not eligible." And they came around and decided to form a Sons of the American Legion, which is for sons, grandsons, great-grandsons, stepsons, step-grandsons, step-great-grandsons of qualifying veterans. So I joined that, and I said, I don't know how active I'll be, but I'll honor my father. So I did. And we were a brand new squadron, they call those, and we were getting our charter, and lo and behold, they voted me to be commander. So I got my little handbook, and I went home that night, and I'm reading it, and I said, well, my goodness, they've changed eligibility dates. So I called the guy up that sponsored me, and I said, "Hey, I've got a new member." He said, "Oh, you do? For the Sons or the Legion?" I said, "It's for the Legion." He said, "Who is it?" I said, "It's me." So, it gave people a chance to participate in the American Legion and be a part of the family because of their lineage. The auxiliary is always either mothers, wives, daughters, grandmothers, all that join the auxiliary, and then sons, grandsons, whatever, join the Sons of the American Legion. Now, back in 2018, something was called the Legion Act got passed, and President Trump actually signed it on stage at our convention. The Legion Act means let everyone get involved nationally. And that opened up our membership to anyone who had served honorably for one day since Pearl Harbor through the cessation of hostilities, which is still going. Our national commander and the national staff proved that there were 1,600 deaths in combat situations when we were not in one of the war eras that we'd approved. And we were chartered by Congress, so it literally takes an act of Congress to get passed for us to change our membership eligibilities.
Oh, wow.
An act of Congress, and they passed it, and President Trump signed it on our stage. So, there are lots of opportunities out there to become a part of the Legion family. Not every post has an auxiliary, not every post has a sons, not every post has a riders. Some posts have them all. Not every post has a home, a building. Some posts have large, fine buildings. All of them are different. We've got posts with 15 members, and the biggest one in Memphis, number 27, has 813 members.
Wow.
And they're larger ones. There's one down in Florida with like 6,000 members. So, there's lots of opportunities to join the Legion family. Lots of it. There's lots of local opportunities right here in this general area, in your viewing area, for people to join different posts in their communities.
Yeah, and sure, you need, younger people starting to join and taking on the banner of those of you all that have held it so high for so long. So that's a big encouragement.
Yes, the younger veterans. Everybody says we need the younger veterans. We can't get the younger veterans, but they're sitting around in their meeting all, stuffy, and a bunch of old guys talking about nothing. And I told them last night at the meeting over in Tullahoma, and I tell them all the time, if you want the younger veterans, they are involved with their children. If you want them, you got to get their kids. You got to develop programs for the kids, whether you have an American Legion baseball or whatever. When I was in high school, none of my family ever came to the games. Nobody ever came and watched me play. But now, if you have a 5-year-old granddaughter and you don't go to every practice that she has for soccer, you're a bad grandparent. You're just terrible. So you got to go for that. You got to sponsor those little kids in their soccer teams and their pee-wee baseball teams and their basketball. And you've got to get the scouts, whether it's Scouts BSA or Girl Scouts or Heritage Girls or whatever it is. Get them in your post. Sponsor them for your post. Let them meet in your post. Get the kids. Have family events. Let's have a big cookout and just welcome the whole community to come. One of the proudest moments I had last year after I was voted in to be the first ever senior vice commander for the department, we went up to Kingsport. And they have the largest 4th of July parade in the state. And it was amazing. Now, Commander Kersey was the main guy, but I was behind him and had, nice little convertible Mustang, And the streets were just lined with people just waving flags and red, white, and blue everywhere and just so proud, and it was just amazing. I mean, the whole course was just people 5 or 10 deep all the way, and people with lawn chairs and coolers been sitting there hours waiting for it to start. They got a good seat,
Yeah.
So you see a lot of things like that help you.
That's very encouraging to know, that there are people that care and come out and support their veterans.
That's right. They definitely were behind us. And look, little kids standing up and putting their hand over their heart or saluting me when I drove by. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
It's just amazing.
Well, we have covered a lot of information. I know I did have a question about your goals. We talked a little bit about establishing chaplains in post and things like that. Is there any other main goals that you want to touch on real quick as we close out?
Well, we're trying to do the women's veterans. We're trying to do the telehealth portals. We're trying to get a little bit of God back into the American Legion. And, of course, we got to try to get our membership going because it's been sliding. All the World War II guys have died off just about. Most of the Korean veterans are dying off. And the Vietnam are catching up to them and passing them, So we've got to get the younger veterans. And that's what I'm trying to do is get the posts active in the community, get them involved in the community so that they can attract people. You see, it's just like the best factory in town. If you had a job at the best factory in town, people come up to you and say, hey, Karen, can you get me on over here at so-and-so? Can you get me on? Well, that's what it needs to be with the American Legion. We need people to be excited about the American Legion. We need the posts in the areas to get rejuvenated and get out there in the public and make people want to belong. Yeah. Because, if your plant's closing, nobody wants you to get them on out there. All right? And the same thing with a post. If the post is gone into the doldrums and they're just dying off and not doing anything to energize themselves, that's what's going to happen. They're going to close. That post, that community is going to lose that post. That may have been very vital in their community a few years ago and a very important part. Where I'm from, I live in Lexington and I go to Scotts Hill, those posts are very vital. We do a lot of military funerals.
I've seen
Lots
that
of
here
them.
locally too.
Yeah, it's a great honor.
Yeah.
People say, well, thank you for doing it, and I always tell them it's my honor. I just fire a rifle in a M1 Garand and the 21 gun salutes, but we offer that to people, and we're also trying to get a veteran cemetery for Sparta. The process has started, and I went through this with Parker's Crossroads a few years ago, and it takes a few years. You get on the list, and first 2 or 3 years you just advance up the list. But you have to locate the property and all that. So we're trying to push that and try to get that veteran cemetery also over in Sparta. So I got a lot going on,
You do.
I do. Yeah.
Well, appreciate you so much for being here today and taking the time to come by our studio here in McMinnville on your commander's tour. And you've given me a whole list of things to appreciate about our local American Legion, and we would encourage all of our viewers to look into your post here, everything they're doing, and participate as much as possible in that.
Come out and support your veterans. If they have an event going on, you see the American Legion with something going on. We had a veterans outreach in McMinnville last year. Outstanding event. It was very good. Black Rifle Coffee came over and supported us and gave out bags of coffee to everybody and all the. There was horse therapy, equine therapy for veterans, and all different kinds of things and ideas. So if you see one of those going on, stop and see. Encourage your family members that are eligible to join and support and get involved in your local community because you can make a difference. We are local veterans still serving.
Yeah, definitely. Well said. Well, thank you, Commander. Appreciate you coming by as the commander of the department. Like you said, you don't call it states, but of Tennessee, we appreciate that so much.
The car out there says state commander because people don't know what department it is. When I tell them I'm the department commander, they say, oh, you work for the state of Tennessee? No. I don't work for the state of Tennessee, but I work for the state of Tennessee.
Yeah.
Right.
And all of us, too.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you to our viewers for watching again this week. We hope you have a safe, healthy, and happy week and invite you to come back again for more Table Talk.